Welcome to the Whole Child Sleep podcast, where we help families nurture dreams and raise wholeness. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Whole Child Sleep podcast. I'm your host, Myra Hertzstein. Today, we have a special guest. Jacqueline Lopez is a myofunctional therapist, and she works with us at the CuraSleep group. We normally answer a question the second week of a topic, but this week we're actually diving into a testimonial and breaking that down because I have learned that a lot of people don't actually know when they have a problem related to myofunctional therapy. And so diving into the after results and breaking it down that way, I think will be helpful. So let's dive into this testimonial. All right. This mama of a 3-year-old says, about 2 weeks into our myofunctional therapy exercise, our 3-year-old daughter was already experiencing significantly less snoring. It was surprisingly noticeable that her sleep was deeper. Her body was less restless. She normally would kick and flail at night. She was no longer waking up multiple times angry or confused, and the dark circles around her eyes cleared up. This was all within a couple of weeks. As the sessions continued, we noticed that she was more refreshed in the mornings, and her mood and demeanor shifted. Getting ready for the day was no longer a fight. She became more cooperative and was noticeably happier during the day. We now have a cheerful little girl who is better able to manage her emotions and whose behavior has improved. I do believe these changes are directly linked to what is taught in the sessions. Proper tongue resting positions, nasal breathing, and strengthening the oral facial muscles did wonders for the child in just 3 sessions. We are hopeful that we could help remedy her snoring. But what our daughter gained through this therapy was significantly more than what we expected. Jacqueline, that's such a beautiful, beautiful testimony. Could you break this down for us and tell us what the improvements are that happened?
I love that. That was such a beautiful transformation. But yeah, so when we get poor sleep, it could be either due to the mouth breathing or the tongue not resting on the roof of the mouth, or both, or a combination of things. Or maybe that the muscles in the mouth were not working correctly. So when we rehabilitate these muscles and get them functioning the way that they need to, we can activate that vagus nerve, that rest and digest, to get the body to calm down into a deeper state, a deeper calming state that's needed for sleep. And so when you get more restful sleep, then you're going to wake up, rested, fully rested. You're going to wake up ready to go for the day and happier, right? It's the same for adults too. Like if we don't get enough sleep, then we're going to wake up grumpy. We're going to wake up being tired throughout the day. We're not going to be a happy person if we don't get good sleep, right? So it's the same for kids. They're the same way. That if they don't get good sleep, they may end up having poor behavior during the day. They may be tired, overtired. And so we know as adults what that looks like, and they're just viewing it and mirroring that in their own way with the poor emotional regulation.
Seeing a transformation like that in 2 weeks is shocking. Could you tell us how it's possible to see such a transformation and what could have taken place to see a transformation in 2 weeks?
Everybody is so different when it comes to myofunctional therapy. I've had clients where they experience changes within the first session. I've had clients experience changes after session 6, maybe even session 7 or 8. So it varies so much from person to person. So it's really hard to tell a person when they're going to start seeing changes because it's so different for everybody. But with this child, it seems like she's getting into that deeper sleep that she needs. The muscle function is improving. Maybe she's getting the tongue up on the roof of the mouth and her mouth is closed more during the night compared to what it has been before. And so even just a little bit of change can make something so dramatic of a difference, maybe something that she's never experienced before. And so even just a little bit of improvement can make a big impact.
You mentioned on our last podcast, Jacqueline, that myofunctional issues can cause dark circles around the eyes. Can you tell us why that is?
Yes, absolutely. So the tongue is natural braces for our mouth. And it is the driver to creating for your jaws to growing and developing correctly and properly. And so if the tongue is not resting on the roof of the mouth, our jaws are going to shrink. And when they shrink, it causes inflammation around the eyes. Like the blood vessels are being kind of trapped and they're being squeezed. And so you tend to see more dark circles underneath the eyes because the jaws are not developed, because the tongue is not working correctly or properly, resting in the right place. And so when we get the tongue to go up on the roof of the mouth, sometimes in little kids, we do see a change in the amount of jaw development that they're receiving. You can grow the jaws at a younger age and get better development with the teeth maybe not being so crooked, but widening that whole area. And so that can be very helpful and beneficial. And it's super, super important when it comes to sleep.
That's amazing. And that's so interesting that you mentioned that, because almost everyone these days get braces. And so that's an indication that maybe not all of us are getting deep enough sleep due to our tongue positioning.
Yeah, braces are common, but it's not normal. I encourage even every orthodontist to be working with a myofunctional therapist to get these muscles working the way that they need to for better sleep and for a better, healthy future.
What age do you see kiddos?
I can see ages 2 and up starting with myofunctional therapy, starting doing those program of exercises. Starting at 6 months and up, I can give recommendations and we can do light exercises to just get them moving, get them using their muscles a little bit better. So really we can start from 6 months, but the therapy looks different by age group.
Amazing. I think it would be so beneficial for all families to have a myofunctional therapist on their health team to make sure that optimal development is happening for function, but also for airway and health in general. Jacqueline, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for this information. This is going to be so helpful for families, and I'm so grateful for you and your work.
Thank you so much. Grateful for you too.
Thank you for listening to the Whole Child Sleep podcast. For references to articles discussed in this podcast or for evidence on the topics that we've discussed on this podcast, please look in the description below, or you can find the articles linked in our blog at CuraSleep.us. I want to give you an idea of what you can expect in terms of structure of this podcast moving forward. You can expect one podcast a week, and we will cover a topic for 2 weeks. The first week, you can expect the podcast to be more educational and informational. The following week will be more of a Q&A covering the same topic. If you have a question that you would like us to answer during the Q&A podcast, please send them in at 406-551-4083. And if you've found this podcast to be helpful, we ask that you share it. We would love to reach more tired families. We also ask that you subscribe and like and give us a 5-star review. This also helps us reach more tired families. We hope you have a beautiful day, and we will talk to you next week. By listening to this podcast, you understand and agree to the following. The content of this podcast offers the opinions of Myra Hertzstein and her guests, and it is not intended as medical advice. It serves as an informational purpose. For personalized and medical concerns, consult your healthcare professional. The views and opinions in this podcast are our own and don't represent our employees or affiliates. The views of the guests in this podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect that of CuraSleep Group. Our podcast and website are not for legal purposes, such as establishing a standard of care or expert witness testimony. We don't guarantee the accuracy of statements or opinions. We appreciate your assistance in maintaining content accuracy. If you find errors in our podcast or blogs, please reach out via email to support@curasleep.us. This podcast is owned by CuraSleep LLC and presented by the Whole Child Sleep Podcast. Thank you for tuning in.